guys for coming. I know it's a little bit to ask on a Monday before school starts on Wednesday, but we're here early this morning, so we figured we'd give you guys an opportunity to be here as well. This is Dominique Davis. She's the brains behind this operation. She's the one who kick-started this on me about 365 days ago. So she's also an assistant basketball coach and an assistant soccer coach for middle soccer and basketball. I'm Pete Wintermute. I just do what she tells me to do.
Pretty much.
I coach cross country and track here at Prospect, and we're really excited about this opportunity, and we'll try to keep things rolling. We have some videos to show you. This is our second year doing this, and the first year we kind of just went into this reading a lot about it, watching a lot of stuff about it, and getting excited about it, but it was kind of just winging it, and we were just learning as we were going and trying to stay one step ahead. And here in year two, our approach is much different. We're ready to try to make sure that we got parents on board with this and that they're doing things that can help make their sons and daughters successful, and after watching some of the students that struggle, making sure that students understand what they can be doing to make sure that they're most successful. So up here are some objectives. I guess first of all, what is it? If you don't know what it is, we're going to cover that right off the bat. Second one is why to buy into it. Because I know there's some of you that are going to have hesitancies with change. I had hesitancies with change. And then I talked about the parents, what you can do to make a difference, and then the students, what you need to be successful. We are going to have a few students that were in the course last year that are going to be up here giving some testimonials. We're going to do first through a video, and then at the end we're going to finish with a little Q&A if there's questions. So as we're going through this, we will give you guys time at the end to ask some questions.
So like Pete said, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited because after the first year we had such incredible results. Like both of us have bought into this heart and soul. I mean, it's a lot of work, but we're excited because we saw kids transform the type of learners they became, and just the success too that they had. The feedback that we got from both parents and students as well was really amazing. So we're hoping to hit the ground running and just kind of start off the year really successful. So first up, just kind of to poll you guys, we sent home a letter. We tried to send home the link as well, but hopefully you guys got a chance to at least watch this 2-minute video. So just by show of hands, how many of you were able to see this video? Okay, so a little less than half. So I'm going to play it then for you guys. So sorry, this might be the second time you're viewing it. This is the first video that I made actually for students, just to explain what it was, the concept. Because I introduced this to the class the very first day of class, and I said, you know, how many of you guys struggle sometimes in class taking down notes, trying to copy furiously? I mean, I know I'm sitting in a college course watching a professor just go like for an hour straight, just writing stuff on the board, and if I got lost, it was kind of up to me to figure out, you know, where something went wrong, and I didn't really have any support after that. And you know, a few students did raise their hands the first day, so everybody's kind of nervous. But then I asked, you know, would you guys be interested in this? Because I've been reading a lot about it. As Pete mentioned, I kind of like harassed him into doing this. You know, I really did research a lot because you know, it's a huge transition for students to make. They've gone through basically their entire, you know, education so far, being very passive in the classroom. They sit, they watch, and they see an expert do the problem for them, especially in a math class. So this is definitely, hi guys. This definitely changes that for them. So here's a brief, you know, explanation of what it is, just to introduce you to the idea of a flip class. you didn't quite catch it. We're just reversing the order in which students are actually in front of us doing work. So they're still receiving the same instruction. The videos that we make are exactly identical to what we would introduce, day by day in a lesson, and they're just receiving that at home. So they go home, they access our course website, which I'll kind of show a little bit. And obviously, the kids are going to get a much more in-depth tutorial on this the first day of class. But basically, this is our course website. So Honors Advanced Algebra is here on the left. I know there are some Honors Pre-Calc students here as well that would be all the way up to the right. Let's say we wanted to access the video for Chapter 3. We just click here. Can you guys hear me? And you simply just find, it's also a YouTube link as well, so you can watch this in YouTube. But we just click right here, start watching a video.
This lesson is for section 3-4.
Sorry, I don't like to hear my voice. It's terrible. So basically, they have a note sheet in front of them that is exactly what I'm writing on my tablet computer. And as I explain the steps, they're seeing me work out the solution. They can stop and pause, replay certain parts, whenever they need to. And then they can also do some self-monitoring and self-checking as they go through that learning process. We have an answer key embedded under each and every single one of these video tutorials. So we would open this up and see a completed answer key that details all the solutions. So there are times when we say, okay, now pause the video, try this problem, and then check with the key. And there are certain problems as well that I would work out, but for the most part, we want them to self-monitor, check, and then check their progress and continue on. So one of the things that was shown in that video was using a lesson feedback form. So this is basically to eliminate that, when we're teaching, we get that instant feedback from the kids' faces. They're either like, huh, or sleeping. And then you have to repeat stuff, and you can answer questions right there and off the cuff. So that kind of is eliminated with these online videos. Even though they can go back and repeat as much as often, which is something they can't get from a normal class period, we still have these lesson feedback forms. So they just submit this real quick, just to show that they did watch the video. It's timestamped so we know when they watched the video as well. And this is where they can just type, I didn't quite understand what you did at minute 4:02 or something like that. Now we view these, and then the next day in class that kind of guides what we're going to say. We might just approach that student individually or kind of recap the whole class, that if we notice it's a kind of a common theme or trend. So the idea is that in class they're doing much more work than they've ever done actually in the past. I think the students don't realize how much math they're actually doing, because when you're sitting and watching someone else do it, it's very passive. It looks like it makes perfect sense, right? You can see somebody going through all the steps, you're nodding your head, you're like, okay, that makes sense. You try it on your own, and it just doesn't quite connect until you really have been practicing it a lot. So in class, they get that extra practice, they get that immediate one-to-one feedback, and it's been really awesome.
Sure. This kind of gives a breakdown. We'll show you a clip in a moment, but it kind of talks about the differences of what happens in a traditional classroom versus a flipped classroom. Traditional classroom, lots of times kids come in the door, you check the homework, you grade the homework, you go over some questions on the homework, and then a big chunk of the period is us getting from the class. This is traditional. But a teacher's getting from the class teaching material. And a lot of us went into math because it was easy. It was something we were good at. It was something we liked. And that's not true about a lot of our students. So we stood up in front of the board. We kind of looked like this, and the students just doing problems, and all of a sudden we got down the last 5 minutes, and it was like, all right, your homework's going to be on page 585. You have problems 1 through 30, and we'll see you tomorrow. And the kids walked out the door, and they're like, well, that was cool, that was easy. And then they go home, and when they get to problem like 3, they're stuck, and they don't know how to do problem 3, which a lot of times they can't do 3. 4's going to be hard, 5's going to be hard, 6's going to be hard. And they kind of came the next day, and they barely got through any home. So with the flipped classroom, it flipped. And we spent a lot of time with kids doing problems. So they've watched all the instruction, they've seen how easy it's supposed to be, and now they're actually doing the problems. And when they get stuck, they look at their partners, or they look at their group members, or they look at the teacher and say, where am I going wrong? And the funny thing is, I'd say probably 50% of the questions I answer are dealing with positive and negative. It's a little arithmetic here, but something like that that's throwing them off once that little part's off, the rest of the problem, they're looking at it saying, I don't know how to do this. The reason they can't do it is because there's a little algebra in the room. So they got the concept, but there's little things on the way that kind of block them.
So as teachers, you know, one of the main reasons why we buy so into this program is that we can assess our students like that all the time. You know, when you're up there lecturing, you have really no idea, unless a kid's brave enough to ask a question every once in a while, whether or not there's some kind of misunderstanding. And you know, you don't really get a sense of what they actually know until you see a test or a quiz. Every day, I can walk around and see exactly what they're doing. Just by the questions too, once they start engaging in the conversation, I can see where they're at with the material. And that was huge to us. I mean, for 50 minutes, we can actually find out what's going on with our kids and what they're knowing. So it's pretty awesome. Now, it's kind of one thing for us to talk about it and hear like what it's like, the atmosphere. There's a lot of talking going on. There's a lot of communication between kids and also obviously between teacher and student. But I found this clip online, which this is an AP Physics teacher. This is a calculus-based physics course that he flips. And he's got a ton of resources, and one thing that he did was he showed the difference between the traditional and the flip model. So we're just going to watch this real short clip. It's pretty cool.
Approximately a year apart and cover pretty. On your left is a traditional classroom and on your right is a flipped classroom. These two videos were taken approximately a year apart and cover pretty close to the same material. We're going to now take a look at the traditional class, and what we're going to see now is a time-lapse video of the entire 87-minute class. So you're going to see it move by pretty quickly, and the idea here is so you can see what happens during the traditional class. Let's pause with 1 minute left in class to show you the only thing that we did in this traditional class that was not lecture, one formative assessment. What is funny about this is that in the flipped class, we actually started where the traditional class ended because the students had already received this lecture at home. In fact, in the flipped class, we had time for 2 formative assessments instead of just 1. And we also had time for a summative assessment in the form of a quiz. Remember that quizzes aren't just for grades. Quizzes also help teachers keep track of what students are or are not understanding. However, the main thing a flipped class provides is time for the students to work to understand the material, while the teacher is there so that they can ask the teacher questions in a small group setting. And because the teacher is able to communicate with the students more, the teacher is more aware of the students' understanding of the material. You can see how in the flipped class, the students are continually asking me questions as I wander about the room. Oh, and while students are asking questions in the flipped class, you can see that in the traditional class, I've actually rewound it so that you can watch me lecture, lecture, lecture. We have to call it bookwork now because it isn't primarily done at home anymore. And some of these students aren't just working on bookwork, they're also working to finish up a lab that we took data for in the previous class. In a traditional classroom, they would have to complete the lab at home. However, because there's more time in a flipped class, they can ask the teacher questions during class about analyzing the data from their labs. I found that this makes students more efficient in their work because they spend less time at home spinning their wheels when they don't understand something. Notice that sometimes I did still need to stop everyone and talk to the group as a whole, perhaps to cover something that I thought that a lot of people were not understanding. Another thing to notice is that the 2 videos were taken from completely different perspectives. The different camera locations are necessary because traditional teaching is more teacher-centered, whereas flipped teaching is more student-centered. This is because traditionally the teacher is standing at the board for most of the class. However, when the class is flipped, the teacher spends most of their time with the students at the lab tables and desks. Let's take a moment and just listen to the differences between the 2. Again, traditional teaching is more teacher-centered, so you will hear me lecture most of the time. However, flipped teaching is more student-centered, therefore you will hear the students being actively engaged in their learning rather than passively watching me lecture. We can start with Ampere's law. Closed loop integral B dot ds equals mu naught times the current on the inside. Okay. Let's see. We know B is up, S is also up. Therefore,
Yeah, that makes sense. atmosphere in the classroom. There's a lot more going on, and kids are actively engaged, and that's a huge piece for us as well. You know, in education, there's this huge push to try to get kids to doing more instead of being passive learners. So this right here, I mean, it's putting them up. They're so active for 50 full minutes every single day, and that's why another reason why we totally bought into it.
Pros and cons. We're going to start with the pros. Helps absent students. Unfortunately, a lot of the students that are in this class are also in many other honors and AP classes. So when you're absent one day and you miss 1 day of 7th period day, 6th period day, that means you have twice as much homework the next day when you come back. With this, because it's flipped, you can still watch the video at home. You don't have to be in class to be getting the notes, and then you can still be attempting the problems at home as well. So it really helps those kids that are, you know, absent for a day and don't want to fall way behind, and then they come back from the absence and they already know what questions they want to be asking. That's also true with field trips as well. I'm not going to go through all of these. Another one of the big ones I would say would be just the we talked about the practice, and then I think it all comes back to the opportunity to ask questions. In a traditional class, there's not a whole lot of time to ask questions. We hear a lot of teachers say, well, go to the Math Science Research Group, go to the KLC, because they spent the whole 50 minutes teaching something and not really being able to address individual questions. So I still go back and point out my open house last year. September we have open house, and for a bunch of you who are already seeing me today, so maybe less important this year, but at the open house I had a mom that right off the bat, here I'm older, just ready to talk about the flip classroom, and she says, hold on, can I talk real fast? And I was like, all right, fine, I don't know what she's going to say. And she goes, I want to talk about this from the business perspective. She goes, I work for a very large company. She's like, when we have meetings, this is what we do. She goes, we don't pay people, you know, we don't pay for like $1,000 flights to get people flying from Europe and other places to come to Chicago for a meeting so we can sit and like listen to one dude talk. She's like, when we get in like a group setting, she goes, we already know what we want to talk about, and the moment we walk in that room, everybody knows what the agenda is, and we start like discussing right there while we have everything. And she's like, it's totally changed the atmosphere at work and their productivity when they're together. And Greg Minter, who's the Associate Principal of Activities and Athletics, he actually, for our Institute Day today, instead of taking 15 minutes to stand in front of the staff, he made a video and said, all right, this is what you need to be doing, talking about some things with athletics and activities. So he was like, all right, I'm trying this flip thing. It's a little bit different for me, but here's my shot. So it's kind of cool to see an administrator trying it as well.
It's really cool too to see the kids collaborate so much, because they get opportunities like that, but usually not in math. So we don't really see that happen a lot, and they become so good at communicating and talking to each other and helping each other through problems. It's really cool to see. So one of the things that we noticed right away was, like, just anecdotally, we'd say to ourselves, man, it seems like they really know what they're doing now. Like, they're just doing so much better in class. And then it wasn't until we actually took our first chapter tests were amazing as well, but it was like the second test that we took was our chapter 3 test, because our chapters 1 and 2 are combined. By our chapter 3 test, we saw these crazy results when compared to a traditional model. So when you're looking at that traditional model, this is just my section compared to, I taught 1 honor section 2 years ago and then 2 last year. I had 0 A's, and it's not because I didn't have very smart students. I had kids with 30s, 30 pluses on their ACT. They're smart kids. They just couldn't get enough practice and feedback in order to do those really tough problems on the homework in order to be successful on that test. So once we saw that we had 17 A's, and I don't know, my heart was like smiling, and every day I was like, I'm in math nerd heaven. It was awesome. You know, I can't say enough about just from that one day how, like, we just kind of said, all right, this is it, we're in it, you know? Because we had kind of been testing it at that point, but after this, and we would share the results too with the kids. And it was really interesting for them to kind of see that and be like, wow, this really does work. And for those 3 Ds also, they all came from 1 class, and they all came from 1 group, which I thought was really important too to share with the kids as well. We didn't call out the kids by name or anything, but you know, I said, why do you think that just 3 kids who struggled happened to sit next to each other, or do you think it had something to do with how on task they were, how much work they got done, how much they collaborated with each other? And you know, those kind of conversations, it's really cool to see kids see that there's a direct correlation between what they do and how they perform. It's not just I'm smart and I'm good at math, so I get good grades. There's a direct correlation between the work that they put in and what results they see. So it's pretty cool. Oh, also, Pete, on the same test, his 3 sections, 78 out of 86 students had an A or B on that test. And this test is harder, also, we should mention, because once we saw that they could do harder problems, we started putting in harder tests. Every single test we made more difficult than the previous year.
My kids only did better because I think we're all scared to disappoint Miss Davis after all the pressure she put on us. But it was pretty awesome to see 78 out of 86 kids get an A or B, because that was unlike anything I had in previous 8 years of teaching this course. Here we move into first semester grades, and I know what numbers can be deceiving, but there's going to be a couple things I want to point out. So just read the percentages up there because, I don't know, percentage is a percentage. And you can see the A's and B's percentages go up as we go from traditional to flip. But if you look at the bottom, it talks about how many kids were in this course. And if you go back and look at the traditional, we had 102 kids. And then all of a sudden, last year we went up to 149. So we increased by 47 kids. But these 47 kids that came in, they didn't get dispersed everywhere and say, all right, a few got A's and a few got B's and a few got C's and a few got D's. These 47 kids are all getting added into like the A and B category. We're talking about, 16 kids going up to 39 kids. That's 23 kids out of the 47 are ending up in this A category. And that's the type of stuff that we looked at and we said, wow, I mean, this is awesome. Because I look at honors class and, success, these kids work hard. If you're working hard, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you shouldn't be getting, CDs and F's. And when we look at the A and B success rate, we moved up to about 66% of the kids are getting A's and B's. And I mean, that's 2/3 of the class right there. And the class has got harder. We haven't made the test easier to inflate these numbers. A bigger emphasis on this course is now moving into assessment. It's not based on, all right, did you do your homework? Here's 10 points because you worked hard and tried your homework. 90% of our grade is based upon how you perform on quiz tests.
Yeah, that was kind of a shock too for students to hear that at first. They're like 90%, because a lot of courses are based on total points or a lot of homework gets added into that. And that was how we taught in that traditional method. In that 2012 school year, our grades were weighted by total points. So a homework, 5 points from a homework test, 5 points from a homework assignment counted as 5 points on a test. Now we've moved to a much more rigorous grading scale, 90% assessments. And once the kids heard that, they kind of were a little worried, and then they started performing so well on testing quizzes, I don't think that really became much of an issue. They knew that if they wanted to do well, they must put in the work in order to get that grade on the test. So it was pretty cool to see. Also, we should mention that we had much larger class sizes as well. So the grade fluctuation between 2011 and 2012 is very stagnant. There wasn't really any movement from the breakdown of the A's through F's until we really drastically changed into that full classroom. And that's when we saw this crazy, amazing increase. But we also experienced larger class sizes. I know that I had more than my limit, I guess, of students. I had a student actually have to sit up at a teacher's desk. So this is with an increased number of students in the class. We're still able to get and give individual attention to every kid. It's because they're working together as well that they're getting a lot of feedback. So
we'll talk about this quickly because this rolls into second semester. And again, I'm going to just slide straight to the right. A, B success. We talked about a 20% increase there with 43 students, 43 more students. So again, you're seeing this drastic change in the number of kids getting A's and B's, and you guys can look down the way and there's more A's and there's more B's. The percentages are higher for A's and B's, and when you get to C's, D's, and F, those percentages are dropping. And that's the type of impact that we want to see, and that's the whole reason that we really bought into this, and this is why we're like, you guys are buying into it, because these numbers don't lie. This is stuff that we want you guys to see, that you will be successful, as long as you do the things we want to do.
right. So that's a major component of tonight is that we want to see 100% A's and B's. That's our goal. So that's what we're looking to do here. And we know that the kids who got those C's, they were very inconsistent with watching the videos. They had to come to class prepared in order to succeed, and some of them were very inconsistent with doing that. So it's kind of where they ended up in that C range. The D's and F's, there's not a ton of them, but those kids were kids who were constantly behind. And like I said, we could assess that almost every single day. We knew, all right, this kid hasn't watched the video yet, he's two videos behind, that kind of thing. So our students here who are awesome, and they came out to help us out tonight, they're going to actually talk a little bit about that as well, and we can address some questions to them. But they lived through it, so they can kind of give you a student's perspective as well.
All right, moms and dads, there's a reason you came here, right? This is it. So if you're asleep, just pay attention, because you got yourself all the way here, and you probably dragged your son and daughter here. It wasn't your son or daughter that dragged you here. So this comes down to, what can you do to make a difference? Because each of you, as parents in this room, can make a difference. And I think last year going to this, we didn't really know how the impact of parents, would affect us. And I think the most important thing is that parents, you got to get your kids to watch the video. You got to make sure that they find a quiet place to do this. This isn't a place where you watch a video that's 10 minutes long and you do it with TV on. You're not doing it with music on. You're not doing it playing in the background while you're reading like an English book or doing science movie. It's got to be a 10-minute video that's going to take you about twice as long to watch. So as parents, you got to be encouraging your kids to find a quiet place. Do it when you're undistracted. Make sure that you're pausing it. If you don't get something, you rewind it and watch it again. In real time, if we're in a traditional classroom, you can't pause this and rewind it. When you're at home, you get to self-pace it. So parents, that's something that you really can help encourage your sons and daughters about. If you're seeing that they're not pausing it, then maybe that's something you have to talk to them about. We have packets that they fill out notes as you go through it. If you notice that the packet for the notes is not complete, then your son or daughter hasn't done something correctly. Because there are problems that we expect them to attempt to try. And if they can't do them, keep it and check to make sure if they've done them correctly, and if they're unsure, it shows them step by step how long to go about doing that problem. If you look at the key and you look at their problems and they look identical, that might mean that they're just copying. Yeah, yes, that's easy, but that's not learning, that's not practicing. So we give them the first opportunity to practice at home. And then, if you notice that they're doing a great job with it, I think another good thing that you can be doing is asking questions about it. Hey, you watched this video tonight, what was it about? And for those of you that are ambitious and you're ready to go back to school, moms and dads, you guys can watch the videos too. Because again, if you want to improve your math skills, you can be pretty much taking this class along with your son or daughter. They probably would prefer you not watching it on the same computer with them. They may not be talking to you at dinner then that night. But those are all types of things that can really help them. Because you love your sons and daughters and you want the best for them. They are 15, 16, 17 years old, and as much as they're ready for some independence, they need a lot of guidance. Even if they tell you they don't need guidance. They need a little bit of guidance, they need a little bit of nudging and some redirecting when necessary.
Something that is different from last year, we're going to be providing you with calendars so that you'll see exactly what the assignment, what video they should be accessing that particular night, so that you can be a little bit more proactive. Because, let's face it, sometimes you're like, I don't know what the homework's supposed to be. They can show me anything. So with this, you can actually monitor and follow along if you really wanted to. Especially if you see that your son or daughter is not succeeding in this course, is not in that AP range, that's something that you can definitely take a look at. Because for us, the biggest correlation was either watching the videos or not watching them. That was pretty much it. So that's one thing you can for sure do. All right, so there's definitely things that students need to do in order to be successful. They have to watch those videos and come to class prepared every single day. If you can't come to class prepared, then you really can't participate. You're going to be a little bit lost. You're going to drag your group members down as well, because they shouldn't be taking their time to kind of explain stuff to you. Although it does help to explain and teach something to someone else, that's the best way to learn. That shouldn't be a student's job. So definitely, that's the number one thing. You should also be taking your time, pausing, rewinding any parts that you don't really think you quite grasp. Watch it again. It's pretty painless, although I don't like listening to it either. I hate my voice. But it's not too tough. So just pause, rewind, watch it again. You should also be trying to try problems. Every once in a while, I'll say, okay, now try this problem on your own. Check with the key. You need to be doing that just to self-monitor. That's a big goal. You need to know what you know, and you need to learn how to overcome when you don't know something. So part of the goal for this class is for you to become really self-directed and independent learners, so that you can identify when you're struggling with something and when you need extra support. Another piece is make sure you ask a lot of questions and you come into class ready to communicate and talk with not just your teacher, but also with your peers. I know a lot of students are more individual, and that's okay. You can still work independently as well, but you need to communicate, and work on that throughout the course.
I would say one of the biggest things is I notice that kids learn how to learn. They by watching the videos and then practicing doing the problems with their peers, they started learning how they learn best. And we started saying, holy cow, like, my kids are getting better, like at learning how to learn. Because you think you know how to learn, and then all of a sudden you have to really practice doing it to understand what works and doesn't work. The other thing is that the onus is completely on the kids in the classroom. If you want to be successful in this classroom, it is all up to you. If you watch the videos and you ask the questions, you're going to do great. And that's different because I know sometimes kids were like, well, you know, Mr. Ringgold says he can't help me after school because he's busy and there wasn't time in class. And then another day goes by, and there wasn't time to ask him this day either. And then a week goes by, and a quiz goes by, and a test goes by, and all of a sudden, ouch on that test. In this class, there's no reason you can't ask questions, which just means kids need to be proactive. They need to be willing to get up and communicate. And these are all life skills that we want our kids to be able to walk out of this class and say, I feel comfortable talking to adults. I feel comfortable collaborating with my peers, because it's what is going to help them be more successful in life.
I think that brings us now to, our student perspective. So we're going to play a video, and then after that video, while you're watching it, kind of think of some questions that you might have, because we haven't really addressed any questions yet. I'm sure you have plenty. So think about any questions that you want to ask while you enjoy hopefully this video. After that, we'll follow up with our student panel here.